Hello, welcome to Steve McDonald's Arts and Crafts, and today I'm going to be testing out 7 tips and 7 hacks that I've seen written up or on the internet or different places or I've been told about in relation to resin. Some of them are a bit controversial and I really can't see that they're going to work, and others I think, yeah, that's a really good idea. So the first one I'm going to be looking at today is how to work out what the volume of a mould is, so how much resin you would need. So one of them is using rice. So I'm going to fill this with rice now. Okay, try not to get it everywhere and try and get it as level as I can. Okay. So there we go. So that would tell me that's how much you would need to pour resin for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure that rice as accurately as possible. I did spill that bit, but when I spilled that bit when I was doing it. And this is telling me that I need here 70 milliliters of resin. Okay, so using the rice, it's telling me I need 70 milliliters of resin. And let's see what it tells me using the other method. Let's make sure we've got all that rice out. And the other method is using just normal cold water. Now, I don't know about you, but I tend to overfill my molds sometimes. Okay, so that's filled up now, right, I think a bit more in there. Yeah, right to the very edge. So the surface tension of the water is keeping that in. And let's see if I can do if I can do this without spilling any of it. Oh, look, no, I can't. Let's do that again. So, okay, that's filled up. I know I'm not going to get this done. So, oh, no, there we go. I haven't spilled any of it yet. Oh, there we go. Get all the water out of that. And that, again, is telling me that I need 50 ml of water. Okay, so let's see if it was the 70 or the actual 50. So I'm going to mix up 70 ml, and because that was the greater amount, and see if I've got any left over. So I've mixed my resin up and I've made exactly 70 mils of resin. So let's see if that fills this mould up and see which one was more accurate. To be honest, I think the water one has got to be the most accurate, but I may be wrong. Now, I haven't mixed this up slowly or anything because I wanted a bit of speed to this. So what I will do is I will let that sit, let the bubbles rise to the surface. How about that? That's exactly where it should be. Wow. So the rice worked really well. Here's an extra tip for you as well. Now, when you're measuring out your resin, what you'll find is when you put it into something like this, you actually can't see the measurements very well. So what I do is I put my measurements on there. So I know I need 70 in total. So I put 3 dots on the outside because that's where I need to be to in total. Okay, and I know I need 35 of each, so that's going to be there. I put 2 dots there, so that will be my resin or hardener, and that will be my resin or hardener, so whichever one I put in first. And it's easier, much easier to see, and I use a Sharpie for that. It's much easier to see on the outside than it is to see these little tiny numbers. So there's an extra tip for you. Now, I often make little stickers like this. I don't know if you can see that. And I make those out of watercolour paper. I then cut them out and I want to put them in my moulds. Okay, here's another one that I'm halfway through doing. It's a little flower. And what I use is, I use the silicone stamps, stamp on a piece of watercolour paper, then colour them in using either Copic markers or Posca pens. And actually this is a mixture of both. So what do we do? Because if we put it in like this, then what's going to happen is it's going to be ruined by the resin. The resin will soak into the paper, and as a result, the picture will be ruined, and then it won't look nice in the resin. So what we do is, piece of clear tape, okay, we put the sticker on it, or the cutout on it where we want it, and push that down nice and firmly. Take a pair of scissors. Now I've probably used far too much tape here than you need, but I do like using a lot of tape because I like to be able to cut it round without an edge being there. Then what we do is we pop the sticky sides together, okay, like so. Let's cut that sticky bit off. And obviously this is something that I have done quite a lot. And then what I do is I take something round, this time it's just a paint pen, and I use it like a rolling pin to roll over it to ensure that those edges are stuck. Okay. And then I take a, normally a piece of lolly stick or stirrer, and I go round all the edges again, like so, to ensure that that is as closely stuck as possible, because I don't want it leaking through. So that's that done, into all those little nooks and crannies and crevices. There we go, so that's nicely sealed. And then I just what's called fussy cutting it out, and that's leaving a little bit of a border around your sticker when you've cut it out. And then what I'll do is I'll just go over that again, making sure that's stuck down nice and firm. So there's no gaps in there anywhere for that to go into the resin. And as you can see now that that is nicely packaged up as a parcel. Oh, I'm so funny. I wish. And then what we can do is we can pop that in the resin. Now, this is one of the issues as well that we're going to be looking at, and that's to prevent a sticker raising or floating to the top, what methods there are to do that when you put it in resin. The picture in, and remember, always face down, because it's the bottom bit that is going to be your face up when you've made the coaster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in at an angle to try and avoid air bubbles, and I'm going to push this down, okay, and let that flow out. I did take a little bit of resin out of this mould, but I will pop that back in a minute. So now it's on the bottom, but actually I can see it's starting to rise, and apparently the reason why it's starting to rise is because there's air bubbles underneath this. So as you can see, it's starting to rise. So what I've seen people do is move this around like this on the bottom, and what that'll do is it'll help create a vacuum onto the bottom, apparently, to allow this to stick. But in addition, it will help push out any of the air bubbles that are underneath that are releasing it. So because what I normally do is I normally allow the resin to go a little bit tacky before I put my stickers in, which means waiting around 20 minutes often. Okay, and then I find they don't float then. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm trying this technique, and so, oh, there was a little bubble popped out of that one from underneath, and another one. Maybe this is what causes it. And another one. Oh, and a big one there. So actually, there is quite a lot of bubbles popping out from this. And then when you feel that you're confident that that isn't got any more bubbles in, which I'm not, because actually there's still quite a few coming out, you're supposed to, I don't know if you can see those bubbles, I'll try and zoom into this. It's then supposed to lie as flat as anything. Oh, I think this one's going to work, to be honest. Then it's meant to lie as flat as it needs to. There's loads of bubbles under that. It's amazing how much air is under that. Let me move that around a little bit more. And then we'll get rid of those bubbles. And I'm going to get rid of those bubbles using a heat gun rather than my torch. Because actually, I don't really like using torches on silicone moulds. Because I do find, unless they're moulds that I've made myself, I do find that the silicone moulds sometimes stick to the... look at all those bubbles that came out from underneath it. I'll zoom into that. So let's just get rid of those bubbles with the heat gun. There we go, they're all gone. So now these have been curing for about 18 hours. And this is the one that I did where I used the new technique to put the little sticker into the resin to stop it raising. Let's get that out of the mould. And as you can see, that has come out really, really well. I'm really pleased with that. Now, there is quite a few bubbles in this, and normally I would put a backing on it or something in colour, and then it doesn't really show up the bubbles. But that was because I was really just testing out how to put the sticker in. I would have mixed it a little bit more carefully. But actually, I quite like those little micro bubbles in this resin. They give it a bit of texture. So it's not something that I would not do in the future. And obviously I would probably do more stickers around it, but I just wanted to say this. It worked perfectly. It didn't rise, it didn't float to the surface, it stayed where it was, and I was able to get on a lot quicker by using that technique. Also, there's no bubbles underneath the sticker, which can sometimes happen. The other one I've seen quite a lot about as well, and I haven't tried this myself because normally I sand them, is when you take a mould, like a coaster, and this is I love this coaster, it's a really pretty coaster. When you take it out of the mould, you get this lip, and it's quite a sharp lip. And if you don't want to have to spend time sanding it, then what I would suggest you do is give it a quick wipe, make sure there's nothing on it. Okay. And yeah, you can see that lip. It is quite sharp, and it is quite... I don't know, maybe it does spoil the look of it. I mean, you could put a bit of felt in there or something else, but if you don't want that, then what you can do is you can use resin and fill it up. Now, before I do that, I want to try another hack that I've seen, and I really, really don't think this one is going to work. So, if you have mixed your resin up like I have here, and I've mixed this really quickly, not because I'm in a rush, but because I wanted to put as many bubbles in it as I possibly could, I've seen where if you get boiling water, and this is a flask of boiling water, so it's not actually boiling, and you fill a little pot up like this with it. Okay, so that's really quite hot, and then you put that in it for 3 minutes, and we're going to count 3 minutes on my tablet. Okay. Put that there like that, and hopefully that 3 minutes is, you can see. Yeah, so we're going to leave that for 3 minutes, and apparently not only does it get rid of all the bubbles, but it also allows the resin to cure a lot quicker, saving you time. Now, I don't believe in this one, but I'll be surprised if it works, because all I can see is I think it's going to mess the resin up, but I will be proven wrong if it works. So that's now had 3 minutes in the water. I'm just going to dry the bottom of that off. And actually quite a few bubbles have come to the top. So I'm going to be using the resin that I heated up to pour into this to see if it works. It certainly hasn't got rid of all the bubbles. I mean, there's still tons of bubbles in this. So let's now pour in, and hopefully this is going to get rid of those little edges. Because what it's going to do is it's going to fill in this back, and I don't want to over pour this. And if it's going to cure quicker, maybe it will cure with all these bubbles in it, because they're not going to get a chance to rise to the top, which is a bit of a pain. Now you do need to make sure if you're doing this, you're working on a level surface, because if you're not, then what is going to happen is it's just going to flow over the edges, or one of the edges. And there we go. That's full of bubbles. So I don't really know how it's meant to get rid of the bubbles. I'm going to use my torch on this because it's not a silicone mould to get rid of those bubbles. There we go. It's got rid of some of them, and hopefully some of them will float to the top. But this is supposed to prevent you having those sharp edges and allow you to prevent you having to sand. Now, I like the effect that it's given on this, definitely. The only thing is I would say is that when you're filling the back of a coaster, because it's got those sharp ridges in, those ridges are actually sometimes not at an equal height where it's contracted in the mould, and therefore there is still a little ridge there that would need just a slight bit of sanding. I'm not sure if you can see that, but overall that technique worked really well, and that has come out well. Now, the technique with heating up the resin first, I would strongly advise against. I cannot see that this is a good thing. Firstly, I couldn't get the bubbles out even with a heat gun, and then I did go over it with a torch, and the resin did cure quicker. Not that much quicker, I would say maybe 3 or 4 hours quicker, because I did keep coming out and checking it. But what happened was all those bubbles, those little micro bubbles, stayed inside the actual resin. Couldn't get rid of them. The other thing is, I did try this again a little bit later, and I left the resin in the heat longer, and actually what it did, it heated the resin up. I have got a video of it that I'll do as a separate video. It heated the resin up, it cured in the pot, it went like a block. Then when I poured it, it just went sticky, and it was awful. Please do not use this. Resin is not designed to be put into boiling water for a period of time and then used. It isn't going to speed it up. All it's going to do is ruin your project. So this is a hack that I go to, and I definitely won't use in the future. So the next tip and hack I've seen is cleaning out pots so you can reuse them. Now, I would scrape out as much of this as you possibly can, this resin, and off the bottom. Now normally I would use a bit of alcohol ink and a cloth, but I've seen lots of people recommend on some sites that I'm on the use of baby wipes. So I've got a pack of baby wipes. Here we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with my fingers and clean the sticky residue, or see if I can clean the sticky residue out. Now, this is ideal for if you have a problem with moulds and it's not cured and you need to get rid of all the sticky residue, I would imagine. Well, there's one. And you can buy baby wipes really, really cheaply. You can buy supermarket owned brands, and they're really cheap. These ones were quite cheap from one of our local supermarkets. Okay. Now I usually use silicone mixing pots, because I can normally turn them inside out, get the dried resin off and just wash them in the sink with soapy water. If this works for these ones, then it's really... And do you know what? I am actually really, really impressed. I can't smell resin in there. I can't really see any resin in there. And it has come out quite easily. So, yeah, this one definitely is one that works. I would probably still wash this in the sink with some soapy water, because I do everything. But, yeah, that's come out really, really well. My next tip is, often it is really difficult to hold things and manoeuvre things, especially if they're small moulds. Now, we all have a lot of small moulds, or maybe we don't, but some of us do, and we like them using them. I use them all the time, and I have shown this one before, but I will show it again. So what I have here is a bit of florist foam, or oasis as it's called, and if I'm pouring into these little tiny moulds, I find they do keep falling over, and I am clumsy and I knock them over. So what I do first is I push them into the florist foam like so before I pour in, and as you can see, they are really, really sturdy in there. I let them cure in there. If resin hits this, it does nothing to it. So and you can reuse this a lot until it gets to the point where you have to throw it away. But it lasts me a long, long time. So that's one of the things I do. Additionally, if I'm pouring over a bauble or something that I need to be standing up, I get sticks. These are just round lolly sticks that I put through the dishwasher after people have eaten lollies. I stick them in so they're all level like that, and then I'll pop, that's a bit low, then I'll pop my bauble on it like so. It'll hold in that position. See, there we go, it'll hold in that position. While I pour on it, I'll let it cure, and if you saw my Christmas tree video, you'll see I made quite a lot of baubles like that, and also I have done a video on how to make baubles. So that's my next tip. Additionally, I don't like chucking these away when I've been mixing resin up. So what I do is, when I've mixed the resin up, I pop them back in there, let the resin cure, and as you can see on this one, it's probably got a bit of resin cured on it. Now that's not going to come off when you use it as a stirring stick again. In fact, what's going to happen is, I find it creates a lot less bubbles if it's got a bit of resin on it, and I use these sticks over and over again. Okay, so that's another hack. And the last tip I'm going to give is, and I'm sure you all know this one anyway. Oh, there's a bubble that appeared on top of that, and that still hasn't floated to the top. I'm really, really quite excited about this one, because I use a lot of stickers. So we get rid of those bubbles. This one's still got a few bubbles coming up, so we'll get rid of those. Okay, with the torch. And then my last tip is, always cover your work. Because if, like me, you work in an area and you do lots of different things, there's particles floating around in the air. I've got dogs, so there's dog hair on my clothes, even though I don't allow them in my little studio. So I always cover my work with a box that's nice and clean on the inside. And I cover it up to stop any airborne particles floating in it. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share this video as much as you can to help my channel grow. Bye.